stakeholder groups. The board has asked us to set up meetings with the general public. There's 2 meetings, 7 o'clock this evening. Obviously, you know that when you're here. We'll also be having a duplicate session Thursday evening at 7 o'clock, again, for public who will not necessarily be here this evening. At 4:30 this afternoon, we met with the Administrators Association, and 4:30 Thursday afternoon, we'll be meeting with the Teachers Association, again, to gather their input in terms of the attributes and the qualities that we're looking for the next superintendent. We will be placing advertisements in the New Jersey Association of School Administrators, publications, and with the local Board of Education, we'll be doing it in the local media in November and December, with the idea that the applications will be closed on December 31st after being out on the street or being marketed for approximately 6 weeks. After that, Jim and I will sit down and we're going to evaluate the applications that we get. And I think it's important, at least we feel very complimented by the board that we got the contract, and that's basically due to the fact that we have both been practicing administrators, both at the building level, central office level, and at the end of our careers as superintendents. So we have a very good idea in terms of what boards of education are looking for in superintendents. What we do is we provide a full listing of every individual who has applied for the position. So there is not one applicant that the board will see. We take our educational combined expertise and we tier them. A tier may be those people that are eligible to play in the World Series. There are definitely administrators who are of a high caliber, proven track record, and you definitely want to take a look at. We also have a B criteria, and that B tier could be excellent individuals, but for some reason, they're not 100% up to the standards or the criteria that the Board of Education has established. Okay, viable candidates, but not necessarily in the first tier. Now, why do we have a second tier? Well, if somebody is applying to Lacey Township, there's a great opportunity, a great possibility that they'll also be applying to other school districts. And it's not unusual for us to be in the middle of the process or towards the final end of the process to have one of the candidates say, thank you very much for your consideration, but I've just taken a position elsewhere. So we take a look at the B tier to see if we have somebody in there who might be able to fill that void. And then we have a C tier, very nice intended individuals, but fall far short of the criteria that's been established by the board. And again, in a perfect world, assuming that we don't have any snow closings and any other reasons to disrupt our schedule, we would be reviewing the applications on the first week of January, probably around January 11th. And we have 2 dates that are going to be established in the week of January 20th and January 25th for interviews. And we expect the finalists to be interviewed the week of February 8th. And all of this is coming for a very specific purpose, in that the contracts need to be negotiated between the Board of Education and the final or the successful candidate, and that contract then has to be approved by the Executive County Superintendent for Ocean County. The board's contract alone is one of intent, but it needs the county superintendent's approval before it can be executed. Pardon me, sir?
Yes, that's just an error. Yes, he means 60. That's not hard.
We're expecting that an appointment would be recognized by the Board of Education March 28th. And the reason why all these dates are important is that your successful candidate needs to give ample notification time to their current employer in order for them to break their contract. Most school districts, it's 60 days. There are districts that are 90 days. We've actually worked with districts that have 120 days. What we're trying to avoid is to have that situation where the district has to get an interim superintendent. Because then you would wind up having somebody who's only going to be there for a short period of time, may not have a vested interest other than taking an interim position, and we try to avoid that at all costs. So in a perfect world, if our timetable works, we should be in a position where the superintendent should be, he or her, whoever the successful candidate will be in the superintendent's office on July 1st, which is the beginning of the fiscal year. Any questions on the process? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. You mentioned 2 times about the Board of Education criteria
Yes.
for the superintendent. they alone set what that criteria is?
Yes.
Or are they using this form as input of what that criteria is?
No, the input that we're going to get from this evening is going to formulate questions that will be used during the first, second, and sometimes there's the third round of interviews.
So the current Board of Education sets the criteria?
Yes.
That's it, alone,
Yes,
without input from anybody?
but everybody's getting their opportunity for input
No,
now.
I mean, the criteria for, essentially, the job description for the,
Yes, that's been set.
and that information purely comes from only the Board of Education?
Board of Education said that tonight, and the meeting with all the
I guess
constituencies.
I just want to know about that criteria.
Yes.
Yeah, if you can bear with me, I'm looking up the criteria, and I'll be happy to
We
share.
can share the criteria.
Great, that'd be super, I'd be interested in that.
Mhm. Okay, if you bear with me, I don't have this to put up on the board, but I'll certainly be happy to read it to you.
Great.
Criteria number 1, experience in budget and financial operations, which obviously becomes exceptionally important because the superintendent and the business administrator need to be able to speak the same language, and you're also in a situation where you're going to be replacing the business administrator. So the superintendent that comes in has to have some sort of working knowledge of business functions. Second one is a proven record of experience as an effective leader. Third one, engages all aspects of the school and the community. Demonstrates excellence in efficient communications with diverse shareholders. Strong understanding of technology and its future. Passion for children and lifelong learning. That would seem to be obvious, but nonetheless, it's been restated. Possesses a visionary leadership skills necessary to take the district to the next level. Demonstrates a knowledge of current and emerging educational practices and trends. Leads by example and is a consensus builder. A minimum of 3 to 5 years experience at the building level as a principal. Central office experience is desired, is preferred rather, and an earned doctorate is preferred.
We have no hard copy of that. Can we get a hard copy of it?
Yes, you can. The board will be available. In fact, I've sent it to the board. They've approved this, so this is going to be part of the brochure that's going to be put in electronic publishing that goes out to all members of the NJSA, all colleges and universities in New Jersey, and one of the reasons why New Jersey Association of School Administrators was selected is because of our networking. We also will have this position advertised in the New York, Pennsylvania, and I think it's Delaware Office of Education. So this is not just going to be a New Jersey search, it's going to be more broader.
With your experience in searching for like personnel, how does the criteria stand up to other communities that are also searching?
Very, very rigid, very favorably against other searchers that we have done.
Absolutely.
There have been other districts.
The reason I'm asking, these are very vague and very.
But it does set the minimum criteria.
It sets the criteria for
So individuals, like for instance, if this was a regional high school, which it's not, if it was a regional high school, one of the criteria that we offer to see is that somebody has experience and practical knowledge of the regional relationship, a sending and receiving relationship. That doesn't apply. These are very universal because the idea is to open the pool to as many potential candidates as we possibly can so that the board has a greater pool from which to pull from. The more very specific you become on the criteria, the more limited the application pool is. And of course, in the state of New Jersey right now, superintendents have their salaries capped, and they're capped based on the size of the district. Lacey Township is.
The cap is been overwritten, if you will, by some of the compensation constructs that go into a contract. For example, longevity. This contract is for 4 years, is like?
By law, the contract has to be no less than 3 years, no more than 5.
Okay, so within that point in time, a longevity contract seems to me to have been buried. The question I'm getting at is, have you been privy to or aided in the development of compensation constructs?
We have in other districts, we have not entered that discussion with the Board of Education because we don't know what we're dealing with in terms of the experience of the candidates that are going
But
to
you
apply.
still have to have constructs
Yes.
You need to be able to understand what the salary range would be, if there are any bonuses, what they would be.
That will
If
all-
there are any perks, what those would be.
That will all be negotiated with the Board of Education and their attorney with the successful candidate. Now,
So the public doesn't understand or even get a preview of what they are.
the public will get it when it goes to the Executive County Superintendent, who will approve all
But
of it.
that's after the fact.
Yes. Because the Board of Education, by statute, is the body, the governing body that employs the superintendent. In
And
fact,
I'm confused why we're here.
pardon?
I'm confused why we're here.
We're here,
You, what you're gonna point, what you pointed out to us is fine and all that. I
Right.
don't know the criteria, you
Just gave you the
went through
criteria.
that. We went through the compensation contracts, we don't have that, that's something that the board will decide behind closed doors.
Within,
We, the taxpayers, are gonna have to live with that. The teachers are gonna have to live with that.
the
I
contract.
don't understand.
we're here tonight to provide a public forum. We're going to have, once we continue, a discussion on the characteristics that you think as community members your future superintendent of schools should have. Phil and I use what you give us tonight, we'll utilize this to help develop the questions and help develop a profile for the board of the community needs. That is why, that's the reason for the meeting tonight.
Okay.
To answer specifically about the contract is very, very rigid based on the New Jersey accountability standards.
I understand that. I'm interested in the constructs of the compensation. Because if the salary is capped at $175,000,
That's only for a district of 10,000 or
well,
more.
that- whatever it is, okay? Whatever it applies to here, there's a cap on it,
Right.
okay? However, it's carved out.
Based on issues that are of a great public concern.
Yes, ma'am.
Will they pronounce we take from within, or it's strictly they're looking to go outside of the district?
I'm sorry, she wants to know if it will be advertised for people within as well as outside the district.
Yes,
Within this
absolutely.
district?
yes.
So
Is
everyone-
the board willing and interested in seeing internal candidates? Yes. There's,
What would be the probability of rehiring the existing superintendent? Is
Yeah,
that
that-
something that's common?
that's really speculative on my part. When you say the existing superintendent, you mean the one that's
The
sitting in
one
the
that's
chair?
sitting here, yes, Dr. Anthony.
Was-
Chances of her getting a new contract.
Here?
Yeah.
It's, my understanding is that that individual has been informed that the contract was not being
She's
issued.
already been told.
I know she's been notified.
Notified, yeah.
I think you're asking not to prevent her from reapplying.
Oh, fine. Yeah, nothing, nothing.
You can't prevent her from reapplying.
Right.
But you can make sure you have board members that are not going to reappoint her.
Shall I know about the C list?
And, you know, I do a lot of sports officiating, and I try to coach younger kids saying, why do you want to go back to a stadium that you don't want to be, that you're not welcome there? So, you know, stranger things have happened, I know.
But the answer is yes, she has the right to apply.
Yes, anybody has the right, as long as they meet
You have the right, as long as you meet the criteria.
academic criteria. Sir?
I just want to say overall, I think we have good teachers in this district that care about the students. For
That
the
was a
most
recurring
part.
theme we heard today also, over and over.
The problem is, we have a superintendent that has disenfranchised many of our staff, and whatever formula of questions you put together, you have to have someone who can demonstrate they have leadership ability to transform this district and regain the trust of the staff, because
I'll
there's a
like-
lot of issues.
Yeah.
Great regain.
And I'd like to see, obviously, one of the candidates to know the strength of this district, but I want them to also know something about the weaknesses.
We're gonna move on to that.
And how they're going to address them.
First, we're going to talk all about the
I
strengths.
figured I would jump in.
Yeah, that's okay.
And then we're gonna talk about
And then
your
we're going to move on
concerns.
for you to tell us about your major concerns, and then we're going to move on to talk about personal qualities and personal characteristics of a leader, similar to what this gentleman had brought up earlier.
Okay, anything else that we want to put in terms of strengths of the school district? And we can come back and visit this question
I
again.
mean, the facilities are obvious.
We have seen that
As
every
soon
time
as we
we've been
walked
here.
in,
And
your
the
place.
fact that the technology is advancing, even though it's costly, it's advancing with Chromebooks. And that's why it's important. I was here on the 15th, I agree with the board that you need someone that's going to further push technology to its boundaries.
We
But
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, right, yeah.
We expanded into.
And that's where the technology and the idea of where it's gonna be in the future is one of the criteria that the candidates have to have.
Because we expanded the infrastructure, now they have to take advantage.
Miss, you had a question?
No, I
Something
don't,
that-
I don't know much about the other districts, but one of the things that I see that is very good in this district is the music department.
Okay, music.
I see that they're constantly, they having concerts outside of the district, and the music program and the teachers from the elementary school to the high school are outstanding. So that's
Quality of the music program.
yeah, and the
Always,
instruments,
always important.
they have that ability, because I know that, hearing from other friends from other areas, they don't offer any more, certain programs, and that's something
Well,
that.
unfortunately, in a lot of places, when situations get tough, sometimes music programs.
And we stay funded.
Yeah,
Yes.
and yet the music programs are so important toward the development of kids, without a doubt. Any other strengths you'd like to share as community members with us?
And we'll give you an opportunity to revisit the first question.
Okay, all right, why don't we move on, and now, your most prominent concerns. Some of them came out somewhat when you talked about the strengths, but now talk about the district and major
Welcome back to
concern.
My statement. that
Yes.
From everything I've heard from staff, from teachers, support staff, the superintendent has created an environment where she's basically condescending, not only to the staff, but to the residents. And I think it's crucial, whoever you hire has to be not only able to demonstrate that they've done it, or at least show how they have the leadership skills to break down the barriers that this current administration has created. I have no problem saying it because I've spoken to this staff and I've experienced some of this stuff myself. So that's a concern. When you have your support staff, your teachers who are out there educating children, and they feel that they're not respected or they have a low morale, and part of that is contractual matters as well. But it also has to do with the way they're treated by the administration, and they have to have some sort of assurance that whoever we're bringing in has the ability with leadership skills.
Leadership.
I'll quote
Communication.
Stormin Norman when he gave a commencement speech to the graduates at West Point. He says, "I've seen leaders stand before platoon men and all they saw was a platoon. I've seen great leaders stand before platoon men and saw 44 individuals, each concerned with living and dying and what their needs are." That's what we need in the leadership coming back, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
And,
Other concerns about the district?
Yes, Pete, I have many concerns, and I want to get my voice heard.
Sure, that's the purpose.
That's why
of
we're
this
here.
hearing.
And I'm calling Lacey Pete, I'm the Lacey Reporter, and that's no problem. I have many family and many relatives in this town that have lived here for many, many years, from the 50s on, probably before that. My main concerns, as we saw in the Asbury Park Press in the front page today, we had a business administrator sitting here, and he's getting the salary that he's getting, a payout that is an unbelievable parachute. Now, I don't have anything against the school teachers in this district. I think they all do a wonderful job. But when it comes to this administration in this town, it's abominable, it's terrible, and everybody knows it. And we need a superintendent, and we need a business administrator in this town that's gonna really, I don't want somebody to come in here at $200,000 as a business administrator to sit over there. I don't want a superintendent over there making more than that or less. Well, she was making less. What I want, and I understand, you're gonna go out and do this big search, and I don't have a problem with that. And I don't want it to be political. I don't want somebody in town that's very political to get this any of those two positions. I will be happy with somebody on the outside, but I'm asking you to please pick somebody who really could do the job at a lower rate, because the taxpayers in this town need a break, because the taxes have gone out of control. And the reason why I'm saying this is, if I am gonna stay here in this town, and I am gonna invest my money down the road, that I've been here since 1986 with my family, I don't wanna be thrown out of here, because everybody knows their taxes are the highest going up every year. It's not going down. So I ask you, because you guys are coming in to do this, I don't know, but I'm asking you to think of that before you make a decision on who you're gonna pick and how much money you're gonna give the salary to these two positions. And I'm talking business administrator and the superintendent.
We are not doing a business administrator search, no.
Okay.
Okay, this is just the search for the superintendent position.
Okay, that's fine, but I'm trying to get that out.
Yes.
Because if I'm gonna invest my money down in the road to stay here, because I love this town like everybody else does, we wanna make sure that we can afford to stay here. With that being said, I'm just asking, and no political rhetoric, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just asking you to please think of that, no matter what. We really, in this town, that is my major concern, to keep, I understand that when you go out on a search, there's gonna be somebody that wants a job, but they want a higher salary. But we can't afford the payouts and the benefits and everything else. The school teachers are beautiful people. They try to do great for the citizens and the kids. But when it comes to the administration, that's my major concern. And that's all I'm asking, that you take that into consideration and to remember the people that don't really have a say in this town, and that's why I'm voicing my opinion. Because I'm voicing my opinion for a lot of people in this town that really don't have a say, but are hurting right now. And that's why I came here. And
Thank you, sir.
I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, sir.
You are.
Okay. Other concerns about the district? Yes, sir.
So, a lot of what this gentleman Pete said is, echoes the concerns that I have. I look at the superintendent as the CEO of the district.
Correct.
Right? Business administrator is the CFO.
Correct.
This is the CEO of the district. And there's got to be, a focus on the business aspects, like this gentleman said. This is, government has become a growth industry. This is the only industry that's growing. And, I've been at that podium before, and I've said things like, you can't, if you're in business and you're competing against Chinese or Indian manufacturers, and your costs are going up, you can't raise prices to cover your costs because you got to be cost competitive. What do you got to do? You got to reduce your costs. And the concerns as a taxpayer I have is look at where the money's being spent, and there needs to be efficiencies created. I don't know if the statutes allow for the superintendent to be, have like in business, you have a base salary, and then you have bonuses that are commensurate on that, MBOs, right, that you're going to achieve. This whole institutional hierarchy of which you ride in at this position and you get bumped here and there doesn't give anybody the incentive to do anything. There needs to be an incentive. I mean, we have this solar debacle. If I go back and I look at the literature from 2008, we're going to put solar panels on the roofs of the buildings. No cost to the taxpayer. And if you look at the debt service that we're paying for, it's responsible for a good chunk of our increase in taxes here. So, we have to look at, and I've been critical of the administration that said, you guys are in the education business. Why are you in the energy generation business? Or any other business for that fact. You should be in the business of educating children and doing it cost effectively. Look at these, the way the buildings operate. There's a website available that you can look at the metrics of what the solar panels, output, and what the consumption is in the school. And if you look at the data, this school is using as much energy in July and August as it does any other time of the year. Why? There's nobody here in July and August. I ride by and the place is lit up. Why is it lit up like this? So there needs to be somebody that has to focus on how do we save the taxpayer money? We want to educate the kids, we want to give the teachers the resources they need. But we need that austerity. If the enrollment is going down, then there's got to be right sizing done, just like in any business. You reduce staff, you reduce costs, class sizes go up, that's what it's got to be. Because the tax increases are not sustainable. And, considering the fact that we have other issues in the township, like the imminent closure of the nuclear plant, the tax increases are not sustainable. I think somebody said this, there's a lot of distressed housing in this community. There's a lot of foreclosures, things like that. That person needs to take that into consideration.
Great.
Yes, miss.
I think Lacey looks like it's a really good district, and it is a good district. I think part of the problem is there is a legacy in town. Too many of the same familiar names, same familiar people, same familiar. I would like to see a superintendent maybe who doesn't look so glossy at it. There are very relationship bent things here, that somebody just doesn't come in with a glossy background from a school district that was great and got even better, because that's a cakewalk. Like, if you have a good district, it's really hard to just make it fit. We have a problem, we're sliding backwards. You've got people leaving town, forget the foreclosures, people are leaving this town to get a better school district. You've got kids in honors classes leaving to go to Mondon. Their parents are killing themselves on taxes and leaving to go to private schools.
Exactly.
There are relationship issues here. I would like to see the strategic plan that they did last year with teachers and administrators. There were high school honor kids saying that there are teachers that know that kids are actively doing drugs and don't care. So, there's an issue with tenure, there's an issue with this. I think the school has been so jaded with the superintendent that it's now all or nothing. So I think you've lost a lot of morale, which I think hurts young teachers because they're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and then they're stuck with the Eeyores who are just disgusted with the superintendent. But there is very much we've always done it that way, but we've always done it that way, but we've always done it that way. My kids are young, and we have suffered through an amazing amount of student teachers. Yes, student teachers need to have their practice or they never get to be professional teachers. But all we do is student teachers, all the time. Like, nobody's looking at core failures. Like, we're here. I would like somebody with a little experience, a little bit more hands, boots on the ground, go into a classroom, find out what's wrong, build a relationship with the principals, because there's also a big fight between the principals, and I don't see much going on there where the superintendent is listening to the parents about what's going on in the schools regarding the principals and how they're responding. So I think this status quo, that everything's okay, and the problems are the budget, the problems are that, the budget will fix itself if the problems in the school were fixed. A lot of the losses that we're having with kids, a lot of the turmoil, a lot of the changeover. My son has had great teachers, they've left to go to other districts in the world, but we've always done it that way. And it does, it's a brand new world, and Lacey just seems very 1950s with their criteria and their ideology.
And that's a really good point that you brought up about Monsignor Donald, because there's probably a lot of kids going to Monsignor Donald.
We've got money.
But you got people in government that send their kids. You got people in the township government that are sending their kids.
You got board members.
Board members send their children to
Right, to
Yeah.
homeschool.
Let me say that happens in a lot of public school districts.
Right, but it just.
It's not all that unusual for public school teachers to send their kids, and that happens.
Right.
I don't want you
Well,
to think,
for-
that's not just relegated here, honestly.
No, and for valid reasons,
Yeah.
if they want to have,
People make their own,
religious background,
individual
whatever,
choices
but
based
not-
on
not by
different.
default.
Right.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yes, I have two kids, I guess, just to piggyback on what she said, I have two kids in the district, a fourth grader and a seventh grader. And the issue that I've seen over the years, it just seems like we teach too much to the test rather than developing a good curriculum. If you teach the kids properly and effectively, they're gonna pass those tests no matter what. So why focus so much on the tests and worksheets and so forth? We need good curriculum and someone that has some experience and background to that.
So you see a problem is too much teaching to the test, is that what I
Correct.
hear?
One of the,
But the testing itself comes from the DOE. We know
That's
that's not Lacey's, that's not Lacey's.
one of the positive things that's occurring right now, I don't know if you saw the paper this morning, but President Obama was meeting with Ernie Duncan today, and they're talking about reducing the amount of testing. In fact, it was down to 2% is what I heard, 2% of the instruction. I think the Department of Education heard loud and clear the parents' concerns with PARC and the other testing assessments that took place last year.
Because there's going to be less time this year.
Yeah.
Compared to last year. And I think that movement will.
Your points are well
sort of
taken,
gain
but I
steam
think
soon.
other people that are in a higher position than us are starting to pay attention to it.
In your interviewing process, you're vetting personality, character traits, and things like that. Everyone is going to say, I am a fantastic leader. I am a great innovator. I am so creative. How do you vet that out? Is there, do you go back to the districts that they came from and ask what are their interpersonal skills?
Yes.
What are their interpersonal relationships?
Not only
dependencies?
do we use the references that they supply us, but keep in mind, between Jim and I, we're over 80 years of experience. Most, if not all of ours, has been in Atlantic County in the public school systems. We have both been members of the NJASA on various committees. We network with other superintendents. So we vet. In fact, even when we give the tier to the board, we'll do some vetting on that, particularly Google searches, and we'll alert the board to any problems that we may see with that potential candidate. And that may be the sole reason why we've taken somebody who looks really good on paper and put them in a low B tier or a C tier. I don't care what the credentials look like. Here's the performance that's happening in the district.
The reason I ask that, it's great that you do that because the ultimate recipient of that benefit is the child, the student.
Absolutely.
And we tend to overlook the student. We tend to focus on budget items. You know, we have a tremendous debt service. We have a nuclear plant that's going to close. Who's going to pick up that $90 million shortfall? Meanwhile, the children need to be educated. So the person that comes in, you talk about leadership skills, to me that's a word. It's a person who is demonstrating their ability to interact with their peers, their subordinates, their superiors, okay, the community, the various members of the community. And oftentimes in the interviewing process, we look at credentials and not, as you have the ability to search and say, you know, this person's full of soup.
The criteria that's established by the board is the credential part, the minimum standards. Now, our homework is going to be is to go ahead and start researching to find out, is this person just saying it or do they mean it?
Right.
And this is a vital part of the process in terms of we're going to take these type of questions, this type of input, and formulate them into questions.
Mhm.
Okay, Mr. Giaquanto, you've listed on your resume that you're experienced in budget development. Give us 3 specific examples of your leadership in the area of budget development. You're not telling us anymore. You have to demonstrate to us that.
Right. I tell you what my concern is. You two have the experience. That board doesn't necessarily have that kind of experience. So when they lay down the criteria, do you have an opportunity to kind of spiff it up a bit?
Well, actually, the board's criteria, the board's criteria was pretty much as a result of the research that we have done with other school districts.
Okay, so
We-
they're benefiting from your experience?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
as opposed to...
And from a very selfish standpoint, our reputation is on the line
Mhm.
based on the product that we delivered to Lacey Township.
Well, let me ask you a question on that. So what skin do you guys have in the game? So now I'll give you an example. You bring a superintendent in 2 years from now, this is not working out, and now we gotta buy out the contract. You guys pick up the tab for that?
Of course not.
Well, what I'm saying is, what skin do you guys have in the game? Because I think you guys should have some skin in the game to make sure we get the right person.
That's not a reality. It's a concern, but it's not a contractual reality. You know, we can't be responsible for individuals who don't live up to the performance
Yes,
objectives.
they're way through.
Yeah.
But that's one reason why the Board of Education uses a consulting agent, so that we can take the benefit of the people that we know, screen the potential candidates. You're right, board members aren't superintendents, and we have been. We can advise them in terms of what we perceive as a potential pitfall. Now, somebody who's been in the business for 31 years and says, I want to be superintendent of Lacey Township. Why? Simple question comes through, why? When you could retire at a moment's notice, are you looking to bump up your last 3 years so that you benefit from it? Or do you have a real philosophical and educational purpose in coming to Lacey Township? That's our responsibility to grill people. Is it successful 100% of the time? New Jersey Association of School Administrators has done over 200 superintendent searches. Not all of them have been successful.
What is your firm's success rate?
Our success rate, this is my 12th. I'm trying to be honest with you. Nobody has been non-renewed. I'm trying to think. Of the 12, 9 of them have been within the last 3 years, so it could still be within the contract period. But I go back to an initial statement. Our reputation is based on how well we deliver. So, as we've been told, the Lacey Township Public has no qualms about stating issues with the Board of Education at a meeting. We have no qualms of stating potential pitfalls that we may know of to the board.
Yes.
I'm sorry, do we have?
Yeah, I'm sorry. What do
You
you have?
guys do like a pre-interview, you meet the individuals and you.
No, we screen the applicants.
yeah.
So you don't meet them.
No, because, once again, by statute,
By statute, it
it's
is.
the Board of Education's job to hire the superintendent.
I didn't say hire, I said meets and.
But are we the individuals who are going to be responsible for screening out possibly the next superintendent? That's why we bring them and we go in a tier, A, B, and C, and that's why we enter into dialogue with the Board of Education in terms of why we put these people based on our pretty
So you
extensive.
don't have any one-on-one personal experience with any of the candidates?
No.
You don't meet them?
No. And the reason being is that I bring my former assistant superintendent forward to the Lacey Township Board of Education. I could feel Scott is the best superintendent for this community could possibly be, but the process is tainted because he was my former employee.
So
We are being as objective as we can, bringing all the candidates on paper forward, and we'll enter into dialogue with the Board of Education in terms of how many they want to interview. There is no cap. There's nothing that says we can't interview everyone if the board wants to commit to about 6 or 7 nights, which they probably would be more willing.
We act as a guide.
But we act as a guide, which is better than a Board of Education who doesn't do this for a living, trying to do the process themselves.
Or look at this contrast to a corporate environment, an HR function, you're doing the first level screen.
Yes, yes. Sir?
I failed to mention 2 questions. So if I'm going to ask you, I tell you what the most prominent concerns are you going to let the board and everybody and the future superintendent know what they are?
We will be sharing with the board the comments that we were soliciting.
Every comment made
Will be in the hands of the Board of
will be
Education.
to the board.
What I'm trying to say is, back in the 70s and 80s, the budget, school budget of this Lacey Township was about 36 million.
Mhm.
Now it's up to 75 million. On top of that, we got railroaded, okay, with the solar panel issue, which everybody's aware of. However, now, in the future, everybody's talking about how the top of all the buildings, they're gonna need to be replaced.
The roof.
The roofs, exactly. And with those solar panels on there, okay, what are they gonna do? Are we gonna bond again and screw up all the taxpayers? That's what I'm talking about. And so when you go back and tell that board and tell the future superintendents who might get this job, you got to ask that question. What are they going to do? Because that's going to be the biggest issue in this town. Because besides being bonded till 30/30 for the solar panel issue, which is an abomination, the new roofs for every school in this township is going to have to be bonded again. And are they going to replace the solar panels, which is going to cost more money, which is all going to be bonded for how long? More than 30/30, the year 30/30, and it's going to cost the taxpayers more money. That's the next elephant in
A
the...
lot of times, you know, teachers are picking and pulling and saying, all right, let me show you this YouTube video on what's going on here. So to say, okay, we have this book, there's not a lot, just because we have a curriculum map that has been developed, parents really want to be engaged and know what's going on. And it's difficult in today's age of technology to point that, you know, to pinpoint that. But curriculum is a huge issue in terms of academic excellence. And finally, I think there is a huge issue with communication. And I think it funnels down from the top. I think, and one of the things I wrote here, and I'll just give you this before I leave, communication is the root, you know, of all the skills that we're talking about and mentioning. I don't think, I think it's critical, it's crucial, it's essential. If you have a superintendent that communicates effectively, you have principals and supervisors that do. I also think that you have teachers that then will, and this makes for happy, involved parents and engaged students. And we do not have a grand communication scheme just because we have the Remind 101 and we have you know, the telephone system and all these technologies and the check the website. You know, going green gets old once in a while. We want interpersonal activities, and we want things of that nature so that we can feel engaged and involved.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And communication as a concern has been a theme.
Yes.
That
I know.
that we have
I
heard.
want to reiterate that, thank you.
And as both of the ladies said, I mean, I've known a long time, actually, I think I was on the board when we hired you. And again, you're hearing a theme, and you'll hear that theme repeated. Right? Every parent you can talk to, every teacher that works in a district, and there is no leadership. There's no commitment, and there's no competency there. And that's what this district needs. You need someone, not when I come up at a meeting and question about the D-rated school system report card in the Star Ledger, and the response was, well, that's not true, you're just starting rumors, it's a line, it's just a line. And, or you talk about the Department of Education coming out and saying that the high school is not preparing kids for college or careers, and the middle school is not preparing the children for high school. And, well, that's because they changed the formulas. Well, they changed the formulas for everybody in the state. You need someone that can sit there and answer tough questions and give the people an explanation. You can't sit here for 5 years as a superintendent of a district when the students that go to this high school prefer it as heroin high and do nothing about it. At the board meeting, and I'm sure Rob, there was a gentleman from the Bosa Club that asked the question, what are you going to do for the kids that feel disconnected in this district? And I think all 4 of us sitting there, we were concerned. I got 29 years in law enforcement. I've seen some horrific things happen in schools and campuses. And, you know, we're looking into it and we're checking it, but where's the superintendent? Where's the leadership? Not that we're working at it, but what are you doing about it? And another thing, I'll give you a perfect example of this, has to do with the lack of leadership, and I've met with her and I've told her, so I'm not talking out of school, I'll say it again in front of her. When you meet with her and I question, they passed the random drug testing. Now, the policy is there where we're supposed to random test for steroids also. And I said, how come it's excluded from, you think, oh, we'll have to get back to you. They didn't even have the answer. And then they said, well, the vendor recommended not doing it because it's too costly. so we don't randomly test for steroids. I said,
You know,
well,
like what's more, you need to do it.
Well,
it's $85 more. I want to test for it. I'll spend that money.
Kids
You know
like
what?
where the hell are
Jim,
they?
Jim Everett should comment at the same time, because this happens sometimes.
Yeah.
We sense that there's a disenfranchising with the current leadership.
Yes.
And obviously, that's probably the reason why we're here.
we can't fix that.
Okay.
Exactly.
We can't repair what's happened
No.
in the past, but we
So the
can
con-
start to lay foundations
It's not
and
repeat.
pathways to a more successful future.
And that's the important thing.
So we don't want this to just turn into a session of,
No, but that's the problem.
okay.
There is no
I
leadership in this
understand,
district.
I understand, but I think we're at the point now.
Somebody who's gonna be very
I think we've heard the whole, we certainly have heard the whole communication issue and response to community concerns and things such as that.
Getting back to this vetting process, and listening, especially listening to what you're saying about administrators, there's not a principal in this school district that can step up and be superintendent.
That's,
It's not up to us.
it's not up to
But
us.
is that something that you guys would vet?
A
Is
principal.
is that part of this vetting process?
Sure.
They apply
You
for
said
the
earlier
position.
that a principal trying to become a super would probably live in a smaller district. Like, would it be wise for us to think of something like that?
It's difficult to say, and I don't mean to be evasive. I don't know what motivates some administrators to seek what they're doing. I can tell you that we have some difficulties right now because we have people who have been a second-year assistant principal who apply for a superintendency. The pool, the talent pool, if you will, is not where it was 5 or 6 years ago.
That's why I was asking about why you chose Delaware, New York.
Because those are the networkings that the New Jersey Association of School Administrators have reached out to.
We can't really,
Fair to-
first of all, we don't know personally, other than the people we met today at 4:30, we don't know personally your administrative team or your principals, or who may or may not be. There may have been people sitting in front of us today who may be interested, or we have really no idea. It's up to individual people. Some principals, as Phil and I did when we were principals, were crazy enough to desire to become a superintendent. Some principals do, but then there are quite a few principals. I'm not just talking Lacey Township, I'm talking throughout the area. You talk to a lot of principals, and as a former administrator, she'll verify that want nothing to do with the district office. They love the building level. They love being in there with the kids. It's not for them to go deal with the Board of Education and have to sit at a board meeting and get the tough questions and things like that. So we can't really answer whether your people, the only thing we can tell you is obviously if they meet the criteria and they have the qualifications and want to apply, then they would, be able, in the pool that we would be vetting.
Nowhere has been stated that, in-district personnel need not apply. It's open to everyone.
So that everybody. Yes, sir.
Getting back to
This
the
district that-
question on the board, which I believe this is supposed to be about.
Yes.
But yeah, we've diverted
And
somewhat.
It says, what are the most prominent concerns you have about the school district? My concern comes about the future, not the past. What we haven't had in this school district does come with leadership, but it comes with flexibility to adjust on what happens in the future, in the township, to the population, to the changing demographics, and how that affects our school district and kids going to school. We recently, in the township, approved low-income housing coming into the district. That is going to significantly change the demographics of this school district. And in the short term, is going to increase the population drastically. I don't know if it's going to continue to grow, though. It depends on what the future leader of the district looks at in the way of channeling the direction of the school district to keep the population here in town. Now, as it was said, many of the people who were here a long time are not having their kids go to our school districts anymore. That added to the decrease in the population. Many of the children that did come here are temporarily not here because of the impact of Sandy. We are a waterfront community. The impact of low-income housing and the children that are going to be coming into the district may be a short-term thing. But my biggest concern is that the leadership be flexible. Some years you may have to say we need more money to be able to educate the children that we have now in our population. What I'm saying is it's numbers driven. Some years the population is going to go down. At that time, it's not automatic that there's a 2% cap and everything goes up by 2%. Those are the years that the superintendent is flexible enough to say, population's down, the numbers are down, our budget that I present to the board should be down according to what numbers are, and has the strength and leadership to justify the flexibility in the future of what is actually needed and determine that the school district, I'm sure that the people in town will support it. Also, as the ladies had said, and as Jim had said, it's been done in the past. It's always been done this way. If you need to cut programs that are not needed, that are not added to our betterment of our academics, if we need to pay the teachers more or get better teachers or retain better teachers, and we need to take money from something that's not giving us any gain or any kind of a better academic experience for our students, then we should have the ability and the leadership to be negative to the rest of the administrators, to be negative to the powerful unions that they will be facing, and say these things, and along also being negative to the parents who are currently have kids in the school that are not necessarily all the taxpayers. Naturally, if my kid is in the school, it's my turn at the trough. Okay? I want the most, I want the best, and I want the max. But it's not only the parents of the kids in the school who support the school district. So if there is negativity that has to come out, the flexibility of the leadership has to be strong enough to say we need to cut back programs, programs that are not academic programs, programs that are not necessary to support the academics, to keep the budget the same without increase, not to automatically increase it. It's numbers driven. And I think the most important concern I have for the district is having someone who's strong enough to look at the positive, look at the negative, and just be objective and be fearless. As far as you guys are here. I call it tunnel vision, okay? You may not be able to think outside the box.
That might be the best thing anybody said.
The reason I say that is you're both products of New Jersey education. And in the rest of the country, New Jersey spends a lot of money.
We do.
Maybe more than anybody else. So why are we limiting our search to people who are just used to spending that much money in the education of our children? Why are we only looking in the New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware metropolitan area? There may be people who are willing to take this assignment outside the confines of what's known in New Jersey as education, and the cost of education, and the union-driven cost of education. That may really be what we actually need, a new direction, a fresh insight, a new look, something that is not always, we always do it this way. What I'm saying is that you may be too confined in your search. You're a recruitment company. That's the way I look at you. Many recruitment companies do guarantee that the candidates they place within a certain period, as do I think so. Personally, I cut extracurricular activities to pay for academics in a heartbeat. Thank you.
Thank you. Want to move on to characteristics?
Yeah.
And although we have talked, I think that has come out in some of our other questions. The final question is looking at personal qualities or characteristics, educational expertise, and important attributes for the next superintendent. I think we've covered some of that in our discussion already, but in the strengths and weaknesses, but if anybody wants to add to that, you're looking at the person now, characteristics. Yes?
He or she has a vision to see the big picture, a strategic thinker, problem solver, a leader, as we discussed, and not just a manager. One with ethical standards, demonstrates trust and honesty, is approachable and personable, is strong-minded yet open-minded, and yes, there are people out there that are both. One who's not
Thank you.
afraid to take risks.
I always thought of myself as one.
Thank you, we consider ourselves both.
One who's not afraid to take risks and make a commitment based on a collaborative approach. I think we talked about this before, rather than a confrontational approach. And with this, you know, his or her communication skills needs to be effective, which we looked at before.
Since you can speak much quicker than I can type, is there any chance?
I'm going to give this to you.
Perfect,
Okay,
perfect.
but I just wanted to.
That's what I'm
saying. In terms of professional characteristics of a great superintendent, I think he or she has experience in the classroom, running a school building as a principal, which is some of the board's criteria, which is nice, has experience and understanding of central office. I think the person lives in a surrounding community, so he or she can be in touch with the culture of the community. I think that's important. Extensive curricular knowledge, special education knowledge, knowledge of school budget and fiscal responsibility. On the cutting edge of continuing education knowledge for students post-grade 12. Experience in contract negotiations. And understands that anything less than excellence needs a professional improvement action plan. And a follow-through of evaluating that action plan is paramount. Because a lot of times we have an action plan in place, but the follow-through on that is not completed. And this needs to happen in order to eliminate subpar performance. This superintendent, I think, needs to be willing to be present. I think great superintendents are present at district events. I want to see the leader of our schools at band concerts, popping in the classrooms informally, as we discussed, sporting events. That's why I don't want to be a superintendent and equally all these things. But has the ability, I know there's a calling and it's special, so thank you for your service. Has the ability to effectively work with others, students, staffs, and parents alike. Effective superintendent also has a strong focus on goal setting and goal getting, because I think too many times goals are set and we need to goal get. In other words, create a clear plan of action to reach the goal intended. And overall, I believe the biggest challenge of any school leader is have the stakeholders buy in or believe in what the district's mission is. So that mission should be presented in each school, in each building office. I do see them now, never used to be, but they are present. But the next superintendent, Lacey Township, in my opinion, needs to inspire and influence stakeholders, and those stakeholders being staff, parents, administrators, students, community members, to to really inspire them to embrace the mission. And I think when we have the stakeholders embracing in on the mission, it's going to boost morale, and Lacey Township is going to be back to great.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting me share.
Appreciate it.
And thank you for giving us that heart.
Yes.
And you left two things out, the ability to walk on water and reverse the setting of the sun. Let's get that, you're okay. I say that with a sense of humor.
Yeah, we're only kidding.
This is really a serious endeavor, as your concerns have underscored. Sir?
As far as qualifications, and these are only my personal qualifications, and I know it's a wish list, it's probably not there. But I would like to look for a superintendent that does have some experience in downsizing districts, just in case it's needed.
I'm sorry, experience?
Downsizing districts.
Downsizing a district, just in case it's needed, flexibility. Okay? Not only growing it, but downsizing if it's needed, depending on the logistics and on the demographics. I would like to have a superintendent that maybe doesn't come from, who hadn't started in the educational system, that ended up in the educational system. Okay? Maybe somebody who had business experience in specifically two types of businesses. One, industrial engineering, someone who knows how to use the stopwatch, efficiency. Number two, accounting. And then came into the educational field that could bring that kind of an experience with them into our superintendent position. The other thing I would look for in a superintendent is someone who has labor relations, human resources experience, not only in the educational field, but negotiating contracts and labor relations contracts in an industrial background, bringing forth cutting edge type of human resource methods to keep costs under control, to cost out contracts properly so that the taxpayers' investments are in fact protected, to oversee the business administrator. The hiring practices themselves in the township may have to be revamped. Whereas in the past, it's who you know, not what you know. It's been said. Not knowing if that's true, I would hope that in the future, it's what you know that brings your qualifications to come and work for this district. So someone who has that kind of human resources and labor relations experience. That's what I would look for. Also, a substantial background check. Who is this person? Okay? Do they have some kind of a background that we maybe should be aware of? We have a current situation with our current superintendent
We don't
that
need
we
to-
hope
we don't-
not to.
We don't need to go into, please do not go into that.
Not repeat.
Can I piggyback on that though and ask what kind
As
of
long as
background
as
check
long
you
as we're not
guys do?
starting to approach
Right, we have to be careful.
liability situations and slander.
No, what kind of background check do you guys do? Or is that up to us, or how does that work?
We wind up making contacts with former employers and current employers. We also do Google searches. A school administrator who does anything that's questionable, you've probably done it yourself. You probably saw the press today. If it's printed anywhere, we'll find out about it. Absolutely. No.
Is there anything
The
formal?
FBI
with
may have
Nexus or
something that
somebody like that
approaches
you guys
people
do?
more perfect.
Is there anything formal with like a company like Nexus, LexisNexis or something that you guys,
Well,
can we request that?
That's a good question, because why wouldn't, like, the FBI provide a background check on somebody in a key position like this?
There's two things that take place. Any school employee has to submit to a fingerprinting background check, which is processed through the FBI and the SBI, State Bureau of Investigation. So the state police will check them back, and so will the FBI. Okay, but they're only for limited cases. Child abuse, moral stuff. Being in law enforcement, you would know the criteria better than I do. So that is mandatory for every single person, from a janitor to a bus driver to the superintendent. And it has to happen when you break service. So anybody who comes to Lacey Township, unless they're already a Lacey Township employee, will have to submit to a background check. That through the FBI and through the state police. Okay.
Let me ask you another question. This gentleman, the criteria he described, having someone from industry, transit, make a change, career change in the superintendent, is that?
Very rarely.
Very,
Very rare.
very.
Honest.
We've had examples of retired military officers go into education, but if they're successful in industrial engineering, if they're successful in accountants, my son's a partner with KPMG, he'll never go into education. He couldn't afford the salary cut. So there's a degree of reality that has to be balanced.
I know, quite frankly, sir, I know exactly 2 school administrators, one being
Yes.
who were out in the business world,
Casino
industry, prior to coming into school administration, only 2. Most of them do the traditional route of classroom teacher, assistant principal, as Phil and I
Not
did
to
when we
be,
worked our way up.
not to, just to be repetitive and not to belittle what you're saying, or remember, you're here, New Jersey metropolitan New York area, an engineer in Oklahoma may not get the same kind of money they get in the New York metropolitan area. So what I'm saying is, there may be people.
They also have to be certified in New Jersey to be a school administrator.
And then you also have.
You have to have the certification.
You also have the other critics who will say, this person's never spent a day in the classroom as a teacher.
Some of what I heard strongly over here is I want somebody
So
to
I
be in the
understand.
classroom.
And there are national search firms, Hazard and Young, just to name one of them, if you want to invest $20,000 to $25,000 in a national search. Can be done. But I think the board was a little bit more cost concerned about spending that kind of money. And you know, we were not the only firm or the only consultants that were interviewed. We happen to think we do a better job than other services because we are soup to nuts. We have, you know, our contractor's 21 points of services. Other searches, well, if you want 1 through 6, you'll pay us $3,000. Now you want 1 through 12, that's going to be this number, and this up until $13,000. Our contract was $7,500, which was reduced from our initial position. Now, I'm not trying to sell myself, I'm just trying to give you what you're getting for the buck.
$7,500, which is good.
Okay, and we're with you until you get a superintendent. What if we go out on this search, and it's happened, the board looks at it and says, I don't care if you think this person is tier A, we don't like any of them. We start the process all over again, not one more penny. We are with Lacey Township Board of Education and the community of Lacey Township until you get your next superintendent, however long that process takes. We have, in my experience, 12 searches, we've gone out multiple times, only 2, on 4 different occasions.
What's the average search time in your experience?
6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
We're fortunate here, we have an assistant superintendent, so if our superintendent does leave, we have an automatic intern. So it could take longer, and we wouldn't, and the person has done a job in the past. So we have somewhat of an advantage to go a little longer and look a little harder.
Right. And, you know, we never pressure boards of education to select a candidate. Because of the example I believe you showed me, sir, that candidate is an absolute failure. Well, who's it go back to? It goes back to the consultants. So, although Lacey Township has the vast majority of the stake in this process, we have our professional reputations. We don't serve Lacey Township well. Lacey Township tells everybody else where we're trying to be a client. So, are we selfish? Yeah, absolutely.
Call capitalism.
Well, we'll also call
You like that.
Also call it professionalism. After 44 years in this business, my name does not get associated with failure. Well, that's not true, it has on occasion. When you have 400 people in the plainclothes detectives and a canine unit in the hallway, we've had some interesting things. But we understand exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
We need to be cost effective. And when I say we, the board, they could have gone out for a $12,000 search, they could have gone out for a $25,000 search. But I think the general opinion is that between the Connecticut, New York, Pennsylvania, and Maryland, there are different views of system. Not everybody, and I appreciate your view where we're myopic in terms of public education. Yeah, you're right. It's easy, but we can never use that concept of we've always done it that way. You're breeding failure. So we want to find an educator that has classroom experience, talks the same language as the business administrator, and looks at a problem and say, yeah, I know how you used to solve it, but this is where we ought to go, and this is why. So I'm getting back to, you know, yeah, there's a lot of faults with things that have been done in the past. We don't see this as an opportunity to vent about that. We see this as an opportunity to create a new pathway so that we don't have to revisit that in the future.
Of course.
Sure.
We have an administrator that resigned as of January 1st.
Mhm.
We will have a new superintendent. Does the new superintendent get the opportunity to interview the new administrator?
You're talking about the business
Yeah,
administrator?
to ensure that
Oh,
there's at
understand.
least some sort of backup, that they're
This
very
current,
sync.
this current superintendent is trying to get a new business administrator appointed by November meeting. She has the authority under statute, and she is trying to rush it, and I am trying to convince.
Let me give you a
Because
little
everything
clarity
that's
on
asked
that.
for.
That's a Board of
up there, all
Education.
the
That's Board of Education.
That is strictly a board, yeah, we have, our search firms have nothing to do, that's strictly,
No, I'm just-
that's strictly a Board of Education
Here's-
decision whether they want to hire the business administrator immediately or wait.
Here's what the statute says. The Board of Education is the only entity that can hire the superintendent. That's the only person the board can hire. Everybody else that gets hired in the district, including the business administrator, has to come from a recommendation from the superintendent to the board, of which the board may say, yes, we approve it,
Or no?
no, we don't approve it.
So if the current superintendent wants to recommend someone, it's well within the right, it's well within the board's right to
Because all
to
the
vote
things we
yes or
talked
no.
about so far is the qualities and the traits and the needs of the community. If the current superintendent has the opportunity of appointing someone, you're